good morning, or well, no, it's good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Thanks for jumping on this 1 hour Zoom call. Thank you to Jocelyn. That is not Justin Taylor. That pretty young lady is not Justin, just in case you guys were wondering. That's Jocelyn. But tell them where Justin is, Jocelyn.
Justin's out at another meeting, so I'm over here representing for him.
Yeah, Justin's been he was in our office yesterday. He did a chat GPT class. If you haven't taken it in Arizona, standing room only. So he'll be back in town soon, I guess, you know. All right, gang. So we're going to talk about the dreaded buyer broker agreement and the buyer consultation. We can go in a lot of different directions with this. And my buddy Jeff Wallenfang, whose photo is on here, he'll be jumping in shortly. He and I just did a class here in Las Vegas, a live class in the Summerlin office for 50, 60 agents about the buyer broker agreement. So he's driving back to his office. So he should be hopping on any second here now. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here real quick. For those of you that I've never met, real quick, my name is Tim Kelly Kiernan. I am on the screen. I think it said I'm the managing broker. That's an Arizona term. Ron and you guys have those managing broker titles. In Vegas, we're just called branch managers. I run the Summerlin office, and Jeff runs the Northwest office. I have 500 plus agents. Jeff has 300 plus agents. So we're dealing with our agents on a daily basis. Jocelyn, what's on the screen now? Everybody, the view for everybody?
So yeah, so right now it's you on the screen. I stopped sharing my screen so you can share your screen.
Okay, so it's a speaker view or gallery view, whatever. Okay, got you, gang. So I've been real quick, been a realtor 15 years here in Vegas, 11 with Remax, just about 5 now with Realty One Group. I'm fortunate to run the Summerlin office for Cuba. Love coming to work every day. Love being part of the Arizona, Nevada culture that we have here. And those of you from Arizona will notice some Arizona, heavyweights on this call too. So we're going to incorporate, Casey and Ron Kopis and whoever else wants to throw their 2 cents in to try to cover as many points as we can about the buyer. Do you guys call it the buyer broker agreement, Ron, in Arizona? A BBA? Okay. I know other states it's a buyer representation agreement. So we both have BBAs. And when I share my screen, what I'm going to pull up just for a second, if I can find it. Where did it go here? Let's find the BBA, Tim. Okay, there's the BBA. And let's share my screen here. So on the screen, gang, should be the Nevada version of the buyer broker agreement. Everybody kind of see that? Yeah, it takes a little bit to kick in here. And it's funny. Lately, I've been gathering buyer broker agreements from different states, just from knowing lots of different agents in different parts of the country. Here in Las Vegas, if I scroll down, our buyer broker agreement is 4 pages long. And in Arizona, it's 2. In Arizona, it's 2. In Georgia, it's 2. In what's the other one I got? Another state. I think California, it's 2. So there's no uniformity when it comes to this thing. Each state is different. I would love that they do it just 1 page. That would be great. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I hope it does, but I don't think that'll ever come to fruition. I'm going to share my screen again. Joss, let me just stop this real quick. Go back. And I want to show you guys a 3 minutes of a PowerPoint that if you like, I'm going to go through each slide kind of quickly. There's a few at the end that have to do with the buyer broker agreement. I think there's 18 slides in this PowerPoint. Is the PowerPoint on the screen, Jocelyn?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I stole this from another ROG manager, Paul in Minnesota, with his permission, kind of tweaked it a little bit. But for those of you that might not be on top of the lawsuit, I hope you are, because, as brokers and coaches and managers, we've been talking about this thing, it seems like every day. And there's waking up to win calls about it. I know Leah and Ron have done classes, and Kate, I think Kathy Laswick did a class a month or two ago, Ron, I think, about the buyer broker agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our thought in Vegas is that we want to do it as many times as we can, because you'd be surprised, at least in Nevada, not all brokers agree with how to use it and what the purpose of it is, and crazy questions like that. So what I want to ask you guys, where's my little notes here? I got two quick questions for everybody. If you don't mind, put in the chat box how many years you've been a realtor. Meaning, have you been a realtor 2 years? You know, I'm going to put in, I've been in here 15 years. So just out of curiosity, how long? 2, 12, 32, 2, 47, 11. Yabba dabba do. Wow. Casey has a couple of years on it. Kathy shipping. Hey, Kath. Okay, great. I get the gist of it. Now I want you to put in the chat box just yes or no, and be honest. And I'll answer it first. So I'm answering it no. How many of you have ever used in your career the buyer broker agreement? I never used it. Interesting, right? Wow. Well, never. Kathy didn't want to say no. She wanted to say never. Way to go, Kath. That a girl. Yeah, when I got my license in 2008, May of 2008, I worked at a Remax. Remax is for 11 years. They didn't believe in it. That was not in their coaching, mentoring, whatever. I heard about it. I knew about it, but I never used it. And then even when I came here as a realtor, I didn't use it. I'm finding out that probably more than half, let's just call Arizona and Nevada, have never used the form that was on the screen a minute ago, which I'll pull back up again. So it's interesting how a lot of us have never used it. And if we have time, I'd like to ask the more experienced ones why they didn't use it as time goes on. But what I want to show you on the screen real quick, and if you guys want a copy of this, just put your email address in the chat box. It's 18 slides. It has to do, it's a nice little synopsis about the lawsuit that Paul in Minnesota shared with me and some other brokers on a call the other day. And I'm not going to go through each page, okay? But I just want you guys to see some of what's on here, where he talks about explaining how the lawsuit came about, why it came about, the buyer broker commission rule, talking about, you know, each side of the courtroom. There's the defendant side and the plaintiff side. He talks about when it was settled on Halloween. October 31st is when they decided on this. So there's some really cool stuff in here, but it has nothing to do with the buyer broker agreement class we're doing right now. But I wanted to bring it up real quick for 2 minutes to see if you liked it. If you did, like I said, just if you put your email in the chat, Suzanne from my office will get this out to you guys in a day or two if you want to read it on your own. The good part about this, which me and Jeff will talk about later on, kind of starts here. You know, where do we go from here, you know, with buyer brokers representation? Okay, how is it going to change? Okay, it looks like it's going to change forever because it's going to be mandatory. And Ron or Casey or whoever else, if you want to jump in, or if Jeff's on there yet, when do we think this form is going to be mandatory, that the buyer has to get it signed? What do you guys think? What do you guys have heard of?
Keep hearing mid-July it gets approved. Then about mid-July we'll start kicking in with mandatory buyer broker agreements.
Yeah, I think that's what the lawsuit is proposing, but it's still proposed. So as of today, right, you know, we can, if you're not using it today, you don't have to because you never did before, but you should start because it is going to be a mandatory form that you're going to have, from what I understand, and anyone else wants to jump in, before you even show them the house. And I don't know, does anyone think that's problematic, or is that a piece of cake? Like, if you really thought about it, I mean. Yeah,
it does present problems. A little problem when you get a sign call, want to run over and show a home. So before I can open the door, you need to sign this form. You know, it's just not something we're used to doing. I suppose once it gets out there and the public gets aware that we're doing it, they'll adhere to it.
Yeah, because what's gonna happen come July, or it could be longer, yeah, I think it's optimistic that we do this by July, but in July, you know, someone calls you off your homes.com listing and they want to go meet you there in 2 hours. You have to bring the BBA with you or get it to them in advance and have them sign it. And most buyers have never had to do that before. And there might be some pushback to that. I'm just thinking outside the box here that if I was the buyer, you want me to sign this form that says I got to pay you thousands of dollars before you show me the house. That wasn't the case, you know, last year when I, you know, bought my other house. So there is a lot of education that has to take place, and a lot of it's got to come from us. You know, let's be honest, because there's a lot of, you know, misinformation out there, and what the rules are, what the rules aren't, and that's why I always tell everybody, take as many of these buyer broker agreement classes that you can. Whoever's teaching it, it doesn't matter, because I think the way you're going to learn to present this to your buyer is going to be different than the way I do it, or the way Jeff does it. Just like a listing presentation. You know, me and Ron probably have different listing presentations over the years. We've developed the way we want to do it. And that's what's going to kind of happen, I think, with the buyer broker agreement. So, so let me get back to sharing something else here, gang, which is actually so on your screen, guys and gals, should be, and Terry Schnitzler, just shake your head. Is the buyer broker agreement on the screen? Excellent. Okay. Me and Jeff Wallenfang will be popping on soon, I think. We just used this morning in our training class. Okay, and I know the Arizona one is probably different, but in reality, it's the same message. Okay, that this is the form that clients will have to sign and acknowledge before viewing a property moving forward. And we highlighted some items on here that are important. Well, I shouldn't say important. All 4 pages of this is important. But we kind of highlighted some of the items that we talked more about in detail at the meeting. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. And I think this is also in Arizona. If you look at the bottom, gang, I highlighted REV 04/23. That's the last time the Greater Las Vegas Association of Realtors revised this form. As you know, associations love revising forms. They change them all the friggin' time. So make sure you look at that date. If they do change it in Arizona soon, which I think they will, as well as Arizona, that you're using the most common form, okay? What I might do with some of you, if you don't mind, and I won't pick on anybody in particular, but whoever I'm looking at. So if you're on my screen, I might pick on you to read some of this for me, if you don't mind. Not the whole agreement, but we're going to read some of the highlighted areas, and then we'll have a conversation about it. Not just me and Ron and Casey or Jeff. I'd like whoever wants to chime in. There's a lot of experienced agents on here that have been doing this much longer than me. And I don't have any trouble deferring to you if you have some advice on using this or what has worked for you, okay? But my favorite new agent in Vegas who hasn't received her license yet, but she loves talking in front of the group. Where's Joanne? Are you on here, Joanne? Joanne Haley? There she is. There she is. Joanne, just read the first 9 lines, if you don't mind.
I don't know if I have microphone on this
Yep.
computer. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, you can hear me. All right.
Yep.
I got kicked out of the room, so I'm out here in the hallway, just so you know.
Oh.
So, yeah. All right. So I'm reading. Where am I reading from, Tim? I'm sorry.
Line 1.
I say that one more time. The top.
Is the buyer broker agreement? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we blank the buyer's name, hereby employs and grants the broker the exclusive and irrevocable rights commencing on date and year and expiring at midnight on whatever date and year to locate property and negotiate terms and conditions acceptable to buyer for purchase, exchange, option, or lease as follows.
Okay, stop it right there. Ask you guys a question. The first line, I'm sorry, line 2. Where it says, hereby employs and grants blank broker the exclusive irrevocable right. Does Ron Copus's name go there as the broker? Does Realty One Group go there as the broker? Does your name go there? What goes on line 2?
Tim.
So you think I go on there, Joanne, right?
Yeah.
Right. Somebody else in Arizona, what goes on there? Line 2.
Company name.
So I got company name, I got broker name, so we got 2 differences already. Well, give me another one, another answer.
That's company name.
So grants Realty One Group the exclusive revocable right?
Or our corporate broker, maybe.
Okay, somebody else. Give me your thoughts on that. We, Mike Smith as the buyer, hereby employs and grants blank broker the exclusive revocable right on commencing on blank date. Do you put the broker's name, the individual name, the company name?
It looks
What do
like
you-
underneath it says company name, so I guess that's what I would be thinking.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad you saw that. A lot of people go right past the company name and look at the word broker. So they put Mark Otero, or they put, Tim Kelly Kiernan, but no, Realty One goes there. So I know it's just a little thing, but you don't want to start off explaining this to your client and put your name on there. You know what I'm getting at? Okay, so it is Realty One Group, okay? All right, Joanne, continue reading line 7, 8, 9, if you don't mind.
All right, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so general nature of property. Buyer intends to acquire an interest in one or more properties, meeting the following general description. Type, we're going to highlight obviously residential and other to cover for sale by owners, new homes, and expired listings, I guess. And then A, buyer agrees to work exclusively with the broker and not with any other broker. Buyer agrees to furnish broker with irrelevant data, records, documents, and other information, including loan pre-approval letters and proof of funds, to purchase upon request of broker, and authorizes broker to furnish copies to prospective sellers, landlords, optioners, and exchangers. C,
Okay, Joe, stop.
buyer, go ahead.
So my Arizona friends, on line 9, what do you recommend you guys check off? Do you check off residential and other? Do you check off everything, just in case they want to buy land, or down the road they want to buy commercial? Do you recommend checking 4?
Well, our form's not quite like this, but residential and would be probably the 99% of the time for us.
Yeah, the same thing out here in Vegas. Not that you can't check off residential and land and other. Check off everything if you want, but
Right.
typically residential is going to be 99% of it for the most part. Okay. All right, Joanne, I'm sorry. Were you on D?
I was on C. C, yeah. So buyer agrees to be available to examine properties and respond in a timely manner to communication from the broker. Buyer agrees to act in good faith to acquire the property and conduct any and all inspections, investigations of the property that buyer deems material and or important. New home lot sales. Some sellers, particularly new home subdivisions, open houses, and for sale by owner will not compensate broker unless broker makes the first visit with the buyer. If the buyer makes a visit without the broker, the buyer agrees to compensate the broker, as stated in the broker's compensation below. And then F is buyer agrees that to the fullest extent allowable under Nevada law, that the broker shall be deemed to be procuring cause for any all successful real estate transactions which arise from the originate during the term of this agreement.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Joe. That's good. Now, again, this form could be different, but what she just read was the buyer's obligations. This is what we expect from the buyer. The buyer agrees to do all these things. And the big one in most cases is probably F, where, E, as far as new homes are concerned, that you have to make it clear to them that you're going to represent them if they walk into Toll Brothers or they walk into Lennar Homes or wherever the new home property might be. Okay. And again, procuring cause, as some of the brokers on here know, or the experienced agents, is a whole other class, a whole other training for another day. We're not going to get into what procuring cause means, but be mindful that if you don't have one of these and you're making a case against an agent that you showed a property to, and then another agent came in and wrote up the offer, if you don't have this, me and Ron and Jeff and Leah it's going to be hard to make a case to get you paid. Okay. That's why this is really, really so important, particularly if you think your buyer is going to stray into a new home. Okay. Because this is the form that's going to get you paid, or at least give us the ammunition to go to bat for you to get you paid. okay? And again, that's why I think it's a good thing that this is gonna be mandatory in, 90 days or so, okay? I'll read number 3 real quick. The broker representations. The broker holds a current license, of course. A broker agrees to work diligently to locate a property. And a broker agrees to negotiate on the buyer as the buyer's agent in terms of conditions acceptable to the buyer, blah, 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 okay? But I'm curious, 3B, if you guys can look at 3B real quick, if you don't mind, I'll try to make it bigger. Whoops, where's 3B? Broker agrees to work diligently to locate real property acceptable to the buyer. Do we really do that anymore? Come on, be honest, somebody answer. Do we really diligently search and scour the MLS for properties for our buyers?
I do.
That a girl? There you go. I knew someone would say yes. But again, I'm a pretty transparent guy. Just like I said, I've never used a buyer broker agreement. I think a lot of agents don't diligently locate the property nowadays. They put them in MLS and wait for MLS to send them some properties. And then the buyer calls you up and they want to see something. And usually they say they saw it on a third-party website. They don't reference your drip campaign that you set up for them because they're programmed to go to these other third-party websites. So again, be careful that you are doing your best to locate them a property. Even at a minimum, it's the drip system through MLS. Because again, if we have to fight for your commission and we're going to use this form and the buyer says, well, Mary in the Summerlin office, Tim, she sent me listings 2 months ago when I met her, but I haven't heard from her since. And I called her and found a house on Zillow. She never called me with the house. I think you all understand kind of what I'm saying here. That's the defense sometimes to try not to pay us, that we didn't earn what we think we should have earned by doing our job. And sometimes it's true. We don't follow through. Okay. And that's particular with new homes too. In my meeting today with me and Jeff, we talked about how, let me ask you guys in Arizona, if you go to a new home builder today and it's going to take 6 to 9 months to build it, and I walk in there with my buyer and we sign all the paperwork, but it's 6 to 9 months down the road, is there a mechanism that me as the buyer's agent have to keep in touch with the builder during that time to ensure I get paid? Does that make sense to any of my Arizona folks?
Yeah, and only in some cases, Tim. Generally speaking, the builders will uphold commissions regardless of if they see the agent again or not. But some of them do have agreements that specify that they have to be re-registered on a 30-day basis, whether they're under contract or not. And I don't think many agents realize that.
You're absolutely correct. I'm glad you piped in, Leah. Nice to see you, of course, as always. That came up at a meeting today where Jeff, maybe 30 days ago, was fighting with the builder to get our agent paid. And it took 7 or 8 months for it to close. And in the builder's paperwork, it said every 30 days, the buyer's agent is obligated to re-register their buyer, even though it's under contract, which sounds crazy to me, but that's how this builder wants to do it. Not many of them do that, but some do. And our agent did not follow through with that. And now we're fighting to try to get his commission. We're probably not going to get it, unfortunately, because the contract says certain stipulations you as the buyer's agent. So just be careful that with the new homes, I don't think there's new home builders out there, hopefully trying not to pay us. Maybe in the past there were some that if they could, avoid paying us legally, they would. And this 30-day stipulation is something like that, where if you're not following and reading all of the paperwork on behalf of your buyer, you're gonna lose out from getting paid. All right, gang. Now I don't know how you guys do it in Arizona, but number 4 here, line 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, down to 39. This is the big one. Not that the rest of the agreement is unimportant. As you see, I'm going to scroll through the rest of the agreement. And a lot of this is boilerplate stuff, disclosures and equal housing and a damage cap. All of this is important, but some of this is in the RPA or purchase agreement. Some of this is in the listing agreement. So a lot of this is overkill, which is good. But this part right here, number 4, is the one. This is how we figure out if we get paid. Okay. So Dan Rosenberg, did I see your name on there, Dan Rosenberg? Are you with me, big boy? Maybe that wasn't Dan. No? All right, who wants to volunteer?
I'm
to
right
read-
here. I'm right here.
Good fella, Dan, nice to see you, big guy.
Sure.
Read, if you don't mind, read lines 33 to 37, or no, 33 to 39.
33 to 39. Okay.
Right.
Broker's compensation shall be paid at the time of and as a condition of closing as follows. A, buyer agrees to pay broker. Select all that apply. 1, blank percentage of the gross selling price of the property, or 2, blank the set amount of blank dollars, or 3, blank whichever is greater of 1 and 2. Buyer authorizes broker to accept compensation offered by the seller or seller's broker, which compensation shall be credited against any compensation owed by buyer to broker.
Isn't this a mouthful, gang, right? Isn't this a mouthful? So what, when we started, a lot of you have used a buyer broker agreement before. If it's in Arizona, it might be different, but you're still putting in a number or something there. Tell me what you guys are comfortable filling in there. What would you want to put on line 35 as the percentage or set amount that you're going to earn?
I always put 3.
3, okay? Who likes the number 3 up there? Everybody? Okay, so we put 3% of the gross selling price, or, so number 2 would be blank, because you can check off all 3 of these, or you can fill out all 3, okay? So you put the 3, and then you might want to, excuse me, either put NA on the other ones if you're not using them, or again, if you are filling in 2 as a flat amount, so you want 3%, but your minimum is $10,000. So it's a $400,000 property, 3% is 12,000. That's what you like to earn, but you take 10. So you can put 10,000 on line 2 and then check off number 3, the greater of the 2. Okay, that kind of makes sense to everybody. Is the Leah or Ron, is the Arizona form similar to that jargon, or is it different?
A little bit. Ours it's just a one line item. There's not an or. You can either put a percentage or a flat dollar amount. You could write this language in there, but it's not pre-written.
Gotcha. It's not already on the form, right? Gotcha.
Correct.
And I might ask you guys, Leah, Ron, whoever else, Casey, as we go on with this, and if Jeff jumps in, if you guys recommend, as you know, as I scroll through the BBA, at the end, there's always areas where you can put in whatever you want to put in. This additional terms area. I might get back to you guys in a little bit and see if you guys typically type something in there that you recommend the agents use. As opposed to, like you said, you have choice A or choice B on your form, okay? But line 38 is what is important here in Las Vegas, that the buyer authorized the broker to accept the compensation offered by the seller or the seller's broker, which is credited against the compensation owed by the buyer. So if the MLS has, can I say 2% gone, or do I have to say 2 bananas? Leah, can I say 2% or 2 bananas? What do I have to say? Let's go with bananas. So I put 3% on line 1, but there's only 2 in MLS. A lot of our agents will take the 2% and call it a day. Okay, but what should really happen if you put 3% there and there's only you're getting 2 in MLS? What is really supposed to happen at the end of the transaction, if I explain that the right way?
That
Anybody
the buyer
follow?
would owe us the 1%.
They would, and maybe you guys that came on first that put your answer in the chat box. Those of you that have always used a BBA, and I appreciate you guys being honest. Maybe put in the chat box, Y or N. How many of you have ever sued the buyer to get that money? Have any of you? If you go in the chat box, just curious, Y or N? No. No, okay. I mean, I think the consensus is gonna be, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to assume anything. But I think the overwhelming majority will be no. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but this is a contract. If they sign it, $600,000 house, they signed it for 3, you only make 2, they owe you $6,000 technically. But again, I don't know to what extent the agent, not Realty One Group, the agent is going to enforce that to collect that money. Okay, that's where it gets a little tricky, I think, where we're going to go back and ask the client for that money, even though they've signed this, right? They've signed it. They said they pay us, but that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Okay. Anybody have any advice on that? Anyone role play in their head how that conversation would go with the buyer? If the buyer says to you, look, I see 3% here, Tim, but that means if it's less than MLS, I got to pay you $6,000 or $10,000. Because that's going to come up come July or August or September, whenever this kicks in, or now if you're using it. How are some of you answering that? If you don't mind sharing. If you don't have a clue how to answer that, that's okay. That's what we're going to try to help you out with here today. But what's the response to that objection when they say, look, Tim, I don't want to, I'll sign it, but I don't want to have to pay you $8,000 at closing.
Can we just say, hey, we'll change it later?
I think now you can, because the way it's always been. Once this changes in July, I'm not smart enough to know if we can change it. I don't think so.
Can we put that language in there? Can we put, what if the person says, well, what if they just say completely, I don't want to, I'll sign this today, but I want to be able to change it. And I want my ability to change this as a client. I want that written in here.
And so what do you want it to say? What's the verbiage?
If I'm the client, I want to say, I'll sign all this stuff, but on line 39, I want it to say this agreement can be changed at any time by the client.
So you agreed to pay me 3%, but at the end you can change your mind and pay me 1%.
Or less.
All right, Daniel, you're a tough one here, big fella, huh?
I'm the client. I'm the client.
Oh, of course.
You want me to sign your piece of paper? You better make it easier for me. I just went to another company and they have a form that said that I can change it. They had a form that said I'll pay you 3%, and then if the seller is only doing 2%, then we could change it later to match what the seller is doing. In so many words, that's what the other firm did. Is your firm doing that?
You're absolutely correct. Okay. And it's funny.
Well, can we do that?
Well, listen, I'll take that under advisement. But my point is, let me tell you what I'm getting at. I was on a podcast yesterday. Same topic came up. Some very experienced agents I've known for years, going back and forth, just like me and Daniel are. And one broker said, you know what, Tim, you know what I'm going to tell my agents to do? I said, what? He goes, I'm going to tell them to put 3% there, have the buyer sign it. Okay. And then in additional terms, put buyer not responsible for 3% buyer fee. Buyer's agent will secure this commission from the seller or something like that. Okay. In other words, you're putting 3%, but you're not going to come after the buyer for the money. His thinking was, I just want the buyer to sign the damn form so I can show him the house.
Right.
I want to show him the house. Okay. And then these are all heavyweight luxury agents that have been doing it a long time. And they said, well, I'll go to the listing agent and I'll make sure I get paid that way, because they think that if there's any friction in the beginning, some buyers might not sign this. And like Daniel said, they're going to hang up and call the next agent on the portal that they're looking at. And that's the fear potentially, if the proposed settlement goes through, about getting this signed in a relatively short window of time to show them a property. Okay. What if an agent calls you guys up from an ad on a third-party portal, wants to meet you at the property in an hour, and you email the form to them and they don't want to sign it? I'm not going to sign that, Tim, but just meet me at the house. I want to just show me the house. We can't come July. We can't open that door unless we have this signed. So what Jeff talked a lot about today, if he pipes back in, he's heading back to his office, about getting that buyer into your office, having a buyer's consultation, doing all the things that we, as buyer's agent, probably in the past took for granted. Okay, we talked about how many of you that are experienced agents, before you went on a listing presentation, you practice, you drill, you rehearse, I mean, I can remember sitting in a car when I would go on a listing appointment, 3 doors down, $800,000 listing appointment, and I'm psyching myself up saying, oh shit, this is a $48,000 meeting, meaning I'm trying to get 6%. 800,000 is the sales price I want to get them. I think is fair. And if this goes through, I could potentially make $48,000. So I mean, I was up the night before practicing. I'm going over objections and all that stuff. But for buyers, we don't do that, right? I mean, I'm not saying we've never done that for a buyer.
I have a
but
question.
not to that extent. And that's what we have to start doing.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What if the client says, yeah, I'll sign this form, but I only want it to be for this house?
Yeah, we talked about that today several times here in Las Vegas, where we think, not necessarily Realty One Group, but maybe, but the association, there might be a BBA for open houses. There might be a BBA for, when we haven't met them yet, where, but again, Daniel, on this form, if we go back to the beginning, we have to put in, right in here on line 2, 3, and 4, a range. So you could make it for one day, one house. So in additional terms, you could put all houses shown on February 11th, on April 11th, 2024. This only pertains to those houses, okay? So yeah, I think because this lawsuit is proposed and none of this is finalized, this stuff is going to change some more, gang. It really is, okay? So that's why
I have a question. I have a question for you, Tim.
Oh,
Tim?
who was that? Yes.
It's John. John,
Hey.
Las Vegas. I have a question for you.
Lost you, John. You there? Hello. How's that microphone doing, John? Come on now. No can do, John? All right, Johnny. Try to fix your audio if you can, but
Oh, got out on you? Can you hear me?
a little bit. Try it again. One more time. All right, Johnny. 3 strikes, you're out, big fella. Sorry.
So Tim,
I'm up by Long Mountain, so I probably don't have a good, up Sunrise Mountain, so I probably don't have a good reception. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're coming in better now. Go.
I said, what happens if we go through all this process, and then once the house closed, the buyer says, I don't have the money, sue me. What do we do?
Well,
Can we
again,
lien the property at that point, or?
Oh, well, again, my understanding as we move forward, this is going to be part of the closing process. This is a form that you might even send to the listing agent, as part of escrow. So escrow gets this agreement. So there's no, again, the whole thing about these proposed lawsuits is transparency. So there's no surprises. Everyone wants to know how they're getting paid and who's paying who. So I could see this, and I could be wrong. Leah and Ron and Jeff could jump in, but this could be part of the escrow process, the closing package. Everything is in there. Okay. But ultimately, to answer your question, John, if they don't pay you, it's up to you to go after them for the money, unfortunately. And that's why when I asked in the chat box how many agents use this and then actually went after the buyer for the money, 99.9 of the agents said no. I don't have the stomach to do it, or I don't have the fortitude to do it. I know of one case in Vegas I heard about, a friend of a friend and a luxury agent sued. It was a $8 million property. So it was a $200,000 plus commission. So they sued the buyer because they had a buyer broker agreement. That might be worth it because of the size of the commission involved, but smaller amounts might not be something the agents have the stomach to do. Okay, so I'm not sure if that answered your question, John, but But ultimately, it becomes a civil matter after the deal closes. Okay, you have to go to small claims court here in Vegas. You get a judgment against them. They still don't pay you. Then you file, then you try to get a judgment to garnish their salary or put a lien on the house, which is most common since they bought a house. You put a lien on the house. Again, it's a process, and most agents aren't willing to do that. They'd rather just move on to something else. Okay.
I have a comment. I
Go
have
ahead.
a comment.
Sure.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that somebody calls in, wants to see a house, and they've never met us. They don't know us. They have zero trust in us. And then we're going to send them a form and say, before I show you this house, I want you to sign up for paying me a lump sum of money. I mean, that just seems like utterly ridiculous to me that would even be required.
Who's speaking? What's your name?
This is Kathy Castro from Las Vegas.
Oh, hey, Kathy. Thanks for jumping on. For what it's worth, I agree with you 100%.
Hey, Tim.
Yes.
Hey, you guys. So first off, I apologize. I was in Tim's office this morning teaching with him. Race back here. My computer screwed up. They're redoing printer and I couldn't get on for 30 minutes. Anyways, so here's the thing, Kathy. Everybody's going to present this thing a little bit different. I agree with you 100%. I would not, hey, who are you? Oh, by the way, I'm going to send you a form because we are in the relationship business. So my thing would be for me would be to maybe take them out, have an interview with them, bring them to the office, show them the systems that we use, show them the internet, show them how we do business, and then present that. Now, here's going to be the thing, Kathy. Generally, they're not going to want to meet you in the office. They're going to want you to meet them at the house, right? So
Yeah.
That's a possibility. You could do that if you wanted to. I strongly recommend you try to get them to the office first. We have 4 offices throughout the valley. Have them meet you somewhere so you can show your value before you present this, because you're 100% right. If you just slide this to somebody, they're going to say, go pound sand. But
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. I mean, if you have a referral or someone that you're getting, you could totally do that. Then you can actually show value for what you're doing.
correct.
But there's a lot of times when that's not the case at all, where
Yeah.
you're just going to be showing some random person. And they seriously can't expect us to, here you go, sign this form. You're going to pay us a bunch of money. You don't know who I am. I mean, nobody's going to sign up for that. I mean,
Correct.
you?
Absolutely not. But that's what I'm saying, Kathy, is that's where you're gonna have to bring them to your office and show your value that way. Show them what you do. Give them a buyer's presentation. Give them a packet with the purchase agreement, with the how to take title, with all the materials that Rock Title has at your disposal. You present that package to them. They're going to see the value, and then you bring others up. Because listen, this is going to be the new norm. It's not today, okay, but it's coming your way, and this is going to be the new norm for everybody. You're going to have this assigned, or I should say this, a form similar to this that says you're going to get paid X amount. But keep this in mind. Right now, that's not the case. The trial has not, the judge hasn't signed off on this, so nothing changes in our business until the judge approves it, and we're thinking sometime in July when this whole thing is supposed to change. But back to your point, you cannot just send it to somebody and say, sign this or we're not going to do business. We are in the relationship business. So you could meet them on the site and talk to them and show them who you are, show them your knowledge of the market, show them your knowledge of negotiations while you're walking through the house with them, and then explain to them, there's a form called the buyer's brokerage agreement, and explain it to them and go that direction. I would never just send it out to somebody and say, sign this, get after it.
Yeah, I think to your
It
point, Jim,
sounds good when you say it, but in the real world, I'm not sure it would really all play out like that.
Well, let me ask you this, Kathy. Would you rather fail today or in 6 months from now?
No, I won't fail. I'll figure it out.
I'm saying, Kathy, not every buyer is going to agree with this. So do you want to work with somebody who's not willing to, because this is an employment agreement. It's really at the end of the day, this just says, Mr. Buyer, you're going to use me exclusively. Let's take the money off the table. It's saying you're going to use me exclusively, especially because today buyers are so finicky and I got other words for it. They have zero loyalty today. They'll drop you, Kathy, in a second and go to Daniel, they'll go to Allison, they'll go to anybody they can think of. So that's what I'm saying. This is an employment agreement. take the money off the table. I'll accept what the seller's gonna give me. This just says you're gonna use me at the end of the day, but you've got to show your value, just like you said.
Jeff,
Yeah, no,
can I throw something in that I have a curiosity on?
Please.
So going back to what Kathy's asking, and somebody that you've never met, you don't know, they call you because they want to view a home. My curiosity is, I want to know how they found me. And I would almost have to assume a lot of them are calling the listing agent because that listing agent's information is on that particular home.
Correct.
So if I'm the listing agent and they want to meet and immediately go, they don't have time for a consultation, whatever it may be.
Yes.
They want to go view that home. Now I'm in a situation where I'm doing possible multiple representation.
Correct.
So what is that? I'd like to know, everyone's thought on that, because that is something that I don't want to do. So I would think that I would reach out to one of my counterpartners and, pass that over to them potentially, but I don't know. Like, I don't know the best way to go about that. But like I said, I've only been in the business for 3 years. I've had maybe 2 to 3 calls where they just reached out to me and that was it. And I didn't my curiosity was, well, how did you find me? But what was happening is they were just trying to get a hold of an agent because their agent wasn't available that day.
Right. I mean, that's a great question. As a listing agent, that's gonna be something you're gonna have to come across as a listing agent, decide if you want to do a multiple representation. Like you just said, not everybody feels comfortable with that. But listen, I think you guys are all getting calls. And I even had some, hey, are you a local realtor? Well, if you know me, you know I'm a local realtor, right? So a lot of these are the scam calls or whatever you want to say. So if you're not comfortable doing a multiple representation, absolutely make sure they understand, listen, I don't feel comfortable doing a multiple representation. I have a partner, I have a teammate, I have somebody, I'd really prefer to have you represented by them instead of me. I think that'd be perfectly fine, Allison, but I agree. You got to find out where they found you from, because especially today, ladies and gentlemen, we got to be super careful of all the craziness that's going on. So I think it's a legitimate question to ask. How did you find me?
And Jeff, if you guys check the chat box, Leah wrote a 7 or 8 lines that is so true. And me and Jeff said this 8 times this morning on our training. We don't know exactly how this is going to fall out. As of now, the example I brought up, you can't put the key, you can't open the lockbox until you have this thing signed. Will that be exactly how it will be when it all gets boiled down to our local associations and the state association? We don't know. There could be some some room here to do this. Okay. But we all know that this form is going to have to be signed early on. And I think if it is in law, it becomes one of our statutes here in Nevada. We have things called NRS and NAC, like our duties owed and SRPD. The clients have to sign it, no doubt about it. This, I think, is going to be the same thing. Unless I'm misinterpreting the lawsuit, this is going to be a mandatory form that the public will know over time that they got to sign, or else they're never going to get into a house.
Yep.
As of now. Now, will there be some tweaking of that? Like Leah put in her box? I think there will be some tweaking, because I mean, there's 70 of us on here that think it's insanity for someone to sign something, paying, guaranteeing money to an agent that they just met. I mean, Ron Kopus looks like a nice guy, but if I meet him at the property, he might not be my kind of guy. And now I'm stuck with him because I signed this agreement here. So to Jeff's point, if you can get them in the office, or you meet him at the property, or a Starbucks for 10 minutes before you go into the house, all of that's going to be changing as time goes by here, because that's just how the business is now, unfortunately. And that's how it's going. Okay.
But the biggest thing, guys, I want you to make sure you understand, really, at the end of the day, this is an employment agreement that you're agreeing to use me exclusively. That's the biggest nut with this thing, is that taking the money aside is I want to know you're going to be reliable. I'm going to be your agent, and therefore I just want to get paid. That's the deal, because the loyalty today with buyers is very sketchy. And so that's really where this is coming from.
And it was funny. I think I told you guys when I started and I've never used this form. I used to work for Remax here in town for 11 years, and they never used it. or if they did, they kept it a secret. But there were some agents that did use it, and they recreated it from the local association form, used probably 90% of the wording, but on the top, they didn't put buyer broker agreement, because that sounds very contractual, very legal. They called it a buyer/agent loyalty agreement. That's what they called it. You know, it's just a play with words, like Jeff said. You know, it's a loyalty agreement, Ron. You're gonna hire me for the next 30 days to represent you to buy a house. Okay, I'm gonna get paid probably from the seller. Okay, I don't think that's gonna change much, Ron, with all these lawsuit things that are going on. But if the seller doesn't want to pay me a penny, and I help you, and you want this house, you're gonna have to pay me something. Okay, so I'm not saying as buyer's agents we're gonna make less money, but we might. Okay, because the Realty One Group, as you know, we don't care about your commission. As Kuba would say, you know, commission splits are bullshit. He doesn't believe in splits. So if you want to take a lower buyer side commission, you can do that. But where I know at a lot of other companies that we won't name, where there's a split, that brokerage gets some of that split, and they want you to only get the most that you can. Here, you have that flexibility to negotiate that to as high or as low as you want. So kind of keep that in mind a little bit too, okay? Leah, if you're still there, did you want to go more into what you said there real quick regarding, you know, whether it should come to fruition or not come to fruition?
Yeah, obviously there's a ton of speculation, and realistically, I think we know about 5% of actual facts by comparison to the sky is falling and what we think might happen. You don't even want to know what I think could potentially happen, because it's a hell of a lot worse than what these proposed settlement terms are if the DOJ really wants to stick it to us. So at this point, if it does come to fruition, if parts or all of this settlement are accepted and approved, there is no doubt, I'm sure Nevada is the same way. AAR, the Department of Real Estate, they are already forming subcommittees to very proactively address these concerns, make sure that we solidify either by statute or by code of ethics or whatever that looks like, timing on all of these things and how that presentation needs to be made and what those options are. So I imagine all of our forms, our listing agreements, our buyer broker agreements, any additional compensation agreements that may be forthcoming, those will all be ready to launch should this come. And guys, I seriously doubt it's going to be by July. Even if they solidify and sign off by July, we'd be looking at end of the year at the earliest.
Yeah, and to Leah's point, here in Las Vegas, I can't speak for Arizona, myself and some of the other brokers, we're pretty close with our association. I was on the board of directors for many years and on committees and chairman of various committees. There's rumors that some of the large brokerage firms in town are creating their own forms, like as we speak, to initiate like real soon. I think that's insanity. I mean,
I have a question.
Like Leah said, we know 5% of this stuff. Who knows what's going to happen as this thing goes on? But these other firms are redoing all their forms like as soon as they can, to thinking they're getting ahead of it. I think that's a mistake.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Daniel. We love
Okay,
you.
thank you. Sorry, I just wanted. This goes back to what she was just talking about. Isn't there a drop dead date though for when the co-ops no longer appear on the MLS? Like, I mean, if they haven't figured out this form by December, so you're saying no, that's not there is no. I thought there was. Okay,
No, so let me rephrase, because there is a possibility, as we have people like Flex MLS, which is one of the largest MLSs in the country, already making statements like this. Your respective MLSs may regulate this and start things and impose them as early as July. But as far as the actual terms of the settlement, that's all incorporated into that, and that has not been signed off on.
Correct. So
okay.
We fall back to this proposed settlement. I hate to sound like we're avoiding answering some of the questions, gang, but we don't know what's going to happen. Here, I'm looking to my right because I'm on my Las Vegas MLS, and you could still put a co-op in there, okay? But that's going to change probably in July, where the co-op field is gone. You don't have no idea what the seller is proposing to the buyer's agent. You got to make the phone call. But that hasn't happened yet. And that's the same thing.
Tim, I am curious. Leah said if DOJ really wanted to stick it to us, the worst case scenario. I am curious. I don't know if anybody else, what do you think would be the worst case? What's your 1-minute spiel there?
You have
Tim,
a,
you want this one or you want me to go ahead and share my conspiracy theories?
I need a tourniquet. I need a tourniquet to stop the bleeding that's about to occur if we go in this direction. I'm playing Sweden on this one or Norway. Okay, I'm staying out of this, but Ozzy, a lot of crazy stuff could happen. If Leah wants to throw a dart at it, that or girl, to help us out here, throw a dart. Go ahead.
I think one of the worst things that could potentially happen is they actually dictate that sellers cannot offer compensation to buyer's agents in any way, shape, or form. And that is a totally different scenario than compensation can't be offered on the MLS.
Because for some reason, our DOJ people or whoever want us to be like the rest of the world. Australia, Singapore, great. If I hear that one more time, when I get on these meetings or whatever, and well, in Singapore or in, Australia, we don't give a crap about Australia. I mean, they don't have this, the things that we have to offer our clients. But
Their toilets flush backwards, for God's sake. Come on. They can't be that.
Ozzy, we're going in the toilet already, Ozzy. I know it's just a matter of time before we got there. We got to be careful here,
It got good. It got good.
It did. Trust me, as we get closer to July, we'll get Leah back on again and she'll really, oh shit, we got 2 weeks until the thing. Then this is what I really, really think, But all we're trying to do, gang, is get you ahead of the curve a little bit. Kudos to Realty One Group, Corporate, Mark Pessin, Dave Romero, all those guys. They're doing a class, I think, every other Wednesday to keep everybody involved, okay? I got a special guest that just walked into my office here, Damon Caldwell, if he wants to chime in here. Everybody say hello to Damon Caldwell. Come on, don't be shy, David. Come on, there's Damon. There's Damon's hand. There's the Caldwell guy. So we're doing everything we can to kind of keep you informed as best we can, but there's nothing concrete yet, okay? But I would recommend we practice the buyer broker agreement over and over again, get into some little mastermind groups if you're not in that already, and be prepared to explain it in layman's terms to your client, just like you do the listing agreement or the buyer, the RPA, in our case, the buyer's contract, things like that. Jeff, are you still with us, big fella?
Oh yeah, I'm here. I'm just listening to everybody.
All right, man. All right, well, I know Jocelyn's looking at a watch. Rock Title is really big about the time here. We're 2:01, so we're maybe a minute over. So we have a few minutes left. So does anybody want to throw something up at Jeff or Leah or Ron or myself? Any questions you guys might want to throw at us while you got us here?
I mean, you guys, the biggest thing for me is you got to just really look at this as an employment contract that they're going to use you exclusively at the end of the day. That's where it's going to be. But if we don't show our value as a buyer agent with a presentation and know the contracts, know what's going on in the market, it's going to be tough at some point in this future to get a buyer to believe we have quality to pay them. And so we really need to make sure we're on page with that.
Tim, I have a question.
Hey, Mike, sure.
How are you? So one concern that I have, if you're a buyer's broker, you want to show a property, it's a hot listing, you send this listing agent potentially a form and or buyer broker agreement to be able to show the property. We all know there's many listing agents out there that don't answer their phone, can't get a hold of them. How does that play in all this? If you want to show this property, that agent needs to receive this form before you can show the listing. You can't get a hold of them. Now what? How does that work? I mean,
my understanding is, and the other guys can jump in, if the property's vacant or TNE, like we have in Nevada, you don't need the listing agent's permission to show it, okay? If it's occupied, then obviously you do, whether it's using showing time or whatever method the listing agent has put in MLS for you to see the property. But you don't have to get their permission regarding your BBA. Let's be honest, the listing agent could care less about your buyer broker agreement. They don't
sure,
care.
but don't you want to know if the seller is going to offer compensation, to you as the buyer broker? I mean, that's important. So
yes, the real question is, will you get the listing agent on the phone to know what the compensation is before you show the house?
Correct.
Good luck with that. No, I'm kidding.
That's my concern. So
at least in Vegas, we have some, I hate to say it, some shitty agents that don't call back, or they blow off buyer agent calls. Hopefully these agents are going to get better and more professional and have a mechanism in place so you know what the commission is. What
well,
that
again,
is.
if they are offering compensation, to the buyer's broker, there's going to be a form, I would assume, from LVR that will need to be signed by the listing agent and or the seller. Again, facilitating that is my, how do you maneuver around that? But
And again, I think Lee and Ron and Jeff will agree with this. There's been talks about how, the RPA, the contract has changed where it says, a seller to pay 3% towards buyer's closing costs. It's called something else, which really means buyer's agent's commissions or something to that effect.
Right.
We don't know. We don't know yet what the terminology is going to be. But we're anxiously awaiting. And then someone told me just the other day that the mortgage, the MBA, the Mortgage Bankers Association, is lobbying, to throw our commissions on top of the loan. That might have some legs to it, where it can be thrown into the buyer's mortgage, like a VA funding fee or the FHA upfront.
Right.
Mortgage.
Understand there's a lot of moving parts in this. So
yeah, it's and I'm not really a good shot. So if it's
I have a
moving, I'm
question.
not gonna. Sure, Dan.
Thank you. This is a general question, but one, how are the co-ops really going to be enforced? Like right now, they're enforced because they're on the MLS, and there's a process where you get paid. Is there going to be a form at the beginning of the deal to be handed to escrow where this is what they're going to do? And how do we know that the co-op is going to stay the same? Let's say I call the listing agent today, I'm going to show your house tomorrow, and I'm told, well, we think it's 2.5%. So I go and show the house, and we put in an offer. How do we know that co-op won't change? Maybe they get multiple offers, and they're like, we don't need to pay a co-op right now. We got 5 offers. Or
that's where that form is going to come into play.
Okay.
Yeah, again, if those of you that have been in real estate for a couple of years, every time we change your form, agents lose their minds. I mean, oh my God, they're changing the form again, Tim. I don't believe it. There's going to be a lot of forms being changed. So if that pissed you off before, you're really going to be pissed off, I think, in my opinion, because I think a lot of these forms have to change, like Daniel said, to protect the buyer's agent to get paid. Okay, so I think there's going to be I don't know how many new forms, but there'll be a decent amount or something complete to get paid.
Do you know if, when you say forms, who is changing these forms, and are they working on it right now? Is Gilvar having meetings on how to affect the code of conduct, or who's meeting and what are we waiting for? Who's making these decisions?
I wish I could say what Leah said before. Leah talked about what AAR and NAR, all the people that as realtors, we're very cynical. We really are. Like, oh, but I pay all these dues. What does LVR do for me? Or what does NAR do for me? Right? I used to bitch all the time until I realized or found out what they do. If you don't want to be W-2'd in your moving forward, make sure you're part of NAR, because NAR makes sure that you're going to be 1099. Okay, it's behind the scenes. We don't even know it. That's the stuff they work for us. But to your point, Daniel, we don't know for sure. But I think common sense says all of our associations are doing more than we can imagine right now, creating committees and subcommittees and advisory boards to cover all of these.
Is that something Mary Perry would know something about?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, well, we're fortunate. Mary's our president. Absolutely. I'm trying to get her to come in and do a meeting for us soon. But again, not to defend those that are in the higher ups at the associations. There's only so much they could disclose.
Right. I just wanted to ask. I just figured I'd ask.
No, it's a great question. It's really, really good question. Okay. But needless to say, there's going to be lots of forms. Okay.
And you guys, again, back with what Leah said, nothing has been set in stone yet. The court hasn't even approved this yet. So this July date, I think it's just an arbitrary date. Until the court approves, yes, the settlement, that's when things can start moving. So irregardless of everybody coming up with these forms and doing all these things, nothing changes today. Keep doing business as usual. Show your value. If you're going to list, if you're going to be the seller, you need to make sure the seller understands why we want to pay a co-op, so they can bring us a ready, willing, and able buyer to buy this property who's been qualified and know what they're doing and have the ability to buy the house. And so that's the thing is we're all speculating on different things. I think they are working on forms, but I would also be careful working on forms right now, because It could all change. And, you know, again, back with you, Michael, is using the buyer brokerage agreement. And you, Daniel, as well. Listen, at the end of the day, you might be getting paid by your buyer. So that buyer broker agreement says to Mr. Buyer, right now, I work for 3%, 2%, 5,000, 10,000, whatever that number is. So you can do either one. This is what I work for. I'll accept whatever the seller is going to pay me and deduct it off of what you would pay the balance of. And it says that right in the BBA. So make sure you guys, the best thing is to get a thorough understanding of this, what this form looks like right now. It could change again. We don't know. I happen to like this form. It's been around forever here in Vegas, and I like it. So I would get used to the form of some sort, being able to tell our buyers, here's what I work for, here's what I earn, this is why, and I will take whatever the difference the seller is offering and take it off with the balance of this, and you'll pay me the difference. If that's what we're gonna do, where this is gonna go. And I'm kind of where Leah's at. I think there's gonna be, I think this will be the new norm at some point. Maybe not this year, maybe not even next year. I don't know, but I think that's gonna be the deal. Buyers are gonna get paid by their buyer.
Buyer's agents, correct.
Yes.
All right, and we're 10 minutes over. We should close up shop here. Any closing thoughts, Ron, Leah, anybody else on KC, if you want to throw your 2 cents in there before we say goodbye to everybody?
Just a great meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Casey. Yeah, I mean, I know Leah did one a couple weeks ago. Kathy last week did one. So I think we try to do these every month or two. Jocelyn, Rock Title is doing this, or is it every week?
Well, we do trainings every week, but I don't know how often we're gonna do like the buyer broker and the listing.
So all of you agents in Nevada, Las Vegas, on May 7th in the Northwest office, we are going to be doing this live in our classroom. So if you want to come, you're more than welcome to. We're going to go in depth like me and Tim did today in the Summerlin office with the BBA, but just you guys get comfortable with it. Learn it, have a buyer's presentation, show your value. Okay, and I don't mean show your value by pointing to the kitchen and say, I know that's a kitchen because that's the stove. Okay, show your value on what you do and how you do it. That's where you're going to succeed in this business. Get comfortable with it. It's there. It's here and it's coming.
Get him, Jeff.
Exactly.
Love it.
All right, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you all. Thank you, Tim. Thank you to all the brokers for joining us. And then don't forget to put Rock Title on your next deal. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.